If you're looking for a big 7-seat Land Rover, chances are you're going to buy a Defender. But should you? Because Land Rover makes another big SUV that's even more practical, nicer inside, just as good off-road, and cheaper to buy. Yes, the Discovery hasn't had much limelight in recent years, such has been the success of the Defender. And there's no doubt that the Defender is a great buy, but one of the reasons you might want to consider one of these instead is because you don't just want to follow the herd. You see, last year the Defender outsold this car 6-1, and that means in some parts of the UK it's getting a little bit common. But what about more objective reasons for choosing a Disco over a Defender? Well, this car does have a more luxurious interior that's a little bit closer to what you'll find in a Range Rover. In the Defender, the design is intentionally a little more functional, and some of the materials aren't quite as plush as the ones in here, although really we're talking about fairly small differences because there are still a fair few hard plastics in the Discovery, so this isn't as nice inside as a Range Rover, let alone something like a BMW X7, although of course those are far more expensive cars. Anyway, the driving position is absolutely superb. You sit high up, these seats are really comfortable, there's lots of adjustment, and you get a fantastic view down the road ahead. So although the Discovery might have been on sale for a few years now, it still has one of the best driving positions of any SUV. What is also great are these controls for the air conditioning and the heated seats. You just pull this little dial here in or out to switch between those functions, and you twist the dial to raise or lower the temperature. What is not so good are these touch sensitive buttons in between those dials, because they're just quite fiddly to use, and although you do get some haptic feedback occasionally, you're never quite sure if you've pressed the button you want. So you have to rely on the light behind coming on to know that you've actually activated that function. And frankly, it would just have been better if these things had never been invented. There was nothing wrong with good old-fashioned physical buttons. In an ideal world, we would also prefer a rotary dial for controlling the infotainment system, like you get on a BMW X5 or X7, but most modern SUVs these days rely on touchscreen only systems, and this one is effectively the same system that you'll find in most other Land Rovers. So it's reasonably easy to get to grips with, and it controls all of your navigation and your smartphone mirroring functions. And also, if you're taking your Discovery off the beaten track, then you've got lots of off-road information on here as well. You might have noticed there is a button just below the infotainment screen there. And if I press that, then this air conditioning panel folds out the way to reveal a hidden cubby behind, which is useful for keeping your wallet or your phone out of sight. Underneath that, there is a wireless phone charging pad and another tray. Plus, next to the gear lever here, there are two enormous cup holders. But that's not all, because you can actually slide those out of the way to reveal another enormous cubby underneath for keeping more stuff out of sight. So that is really, really useful. Under the central armrest here, it might look as though there is no storage at all, but actually under this little flap here, there is actually a fridge, so I can keep a can of drink cool. And the Discovery has not one, but two glove boxes. The one at the top here is accessed by pressing a button on the dashboard, and that can be pulled down, although annoyingly it does want to flip back up again automatically. The one underneath is opened by pulling that lever there, and that does stay open, so that's really, really useful. And on top of that, the door bins in the Discovery are absolutely huge. So when it comes to storage in the Discovery, you are really, really well catered for. Now, the second row seats are perfectly roomy. This is a wide car after all, so you can fit 3 adults side by side here fairly easily, especially given that there's only a very small hump on the floor in the middle. And also, headroom is very good. Even if I sit bolt upright, my head isn't anywhere near the ceiling. So that's all very good. Perhaps surprisingly though, there is more knee room in some other big 7-seat SUVs like the Audi Q7 and the Volvo XC90. This seat in front is set up for my driving position. I'm just over 6 feet tall, and as you can see, not a huge amount of clearance in front of my knees there. And that is with these seats slid as far back as they'll go. But the reason for that is because space on the third row here is absolutely fantastic. There is more legroom than in a Q7, an XC90, or even a Defender 110, and not much less than what you'll find in a Defender 130 or a BMW X7. And even headroom is really good too, as was the case on the second row. If I sit bolt upright, my head isn't quite touching the ceiling. And you can also fold these middle row seats forward electronically, although you do have to give them a bit of a shove to get out again. Now, unlike the Defender, which has an enormous side hinge tailgate that you have to swing open and hope there's enough space behind the car for you to be able to do that, the Discovery has a normal top hinge tailgate. So to open this boot, all I do is press a button on the key fob or on the boot itself, and it just rises electronically, and I need a lot less space behind the car to be able to open it. So that is a good thing. With all 7 seats in use, the boot is pretty tiny. As you can see, larger SUVs like the Defender 130 and the BMW X7 have more luggage space when you're carrying 7 people. But if I fold down these third row seats, then the boot becomes absolutely huge. And if you go for Metropolitan Edition, which is the range topping trim, or you pay extra, you can have electrically folding third row seats. But frankly, we wouldn't bother because they do take quite a while to rise and fold away again. And really, it's just easier to do the job yourself. If you fold down the second row seats as well, then the Discovery essentially becomes a small van. Now, the latest version does not have a split tailgate, but if you're wondering what this contraption is here, well, it effectively serves the same purpose, because if I press a button on the wall of the boot there, then this board folds down electronically, and that becomes a handy perch for me to put on my wellies. Now, this car has the D300 engine, which is a 6-cylinder diesel, and it's really smooth, it pulls well from low revs, and really it offers all the performance you're going to want in a big SUV like this. But Land Rover has actually taken that engine off sale, so you can't order it at the moment. And we're not entirely sure if it's coming back, because it won't be that long, probably 2026, before an all-new Discovery 6 arrives. So if you want a Discovery at the moment, then it will have the D350 engine. That's the same basic 6-cylinder diesel, it just has a bit more power, and it also means the price has gone up too. And what about prices? Well, like for like, with the same D350 engine in both cars, the Discovery is actually slightly cheaper than a Defender 110, and you get 7 seats as standard on this car, whereas you have to pay extra for them on the Defender. The Discovery starts at just under £63,000, although you can spend a lot more money than that if you go for this HSE model or you add a few options. It is worth knowing though that you can save thousands of pounds on the price of a Discovery, either by heading to our website whatcar.com and visiting the new car deal section, or just by haggling with the dealer yourself. If you do decide to buy a Discovery, we'd recommend going for entry-level S trim and adding a few options, including the cold climate pack. But back to the way the Discovery drives, and this does feel like a big, heavy car on the road, even by SUV standards. So this isn't as agile as an Audi Q7 or a BMW X7. It actually handles much more like a Defender. And that means there's quite a lot of body roll through corners and not a huge amount of grip either. On the whole though, this does have a comfortable ride. It isn't quite as smooth as the best versions of the Q7 or X7, but it is certainly more comfortable than a Mercedes GLE. And although this isn't as quiet on the motorway as the best luxury SUVs, it is still a pleasant thing to waft around in, as long as you aren't in a hurry. There are, though, very few SUVs that are as good as this off-road. This is only scratching the surface of what this car can do, but we have tested the Discovery properly off-road against other 4x4s, and you can watch that video by clicking the link up there at the top. So overall, the Discovery might be a bit long in the tooth and is no longer a class leader, but if you're looking for a car that can carry around 7 adults in comfort and you don't want to fork out for a Defender 130 or a BMW X7, then this is still well worth a look. Thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please do give it a like. If you want to watch another one, click up there, and to read our full detailed written review of the Discovery, click there.